It was supposed to be a quiet weekend. I had just moved into a new apartment in a small city, and I was eager to spend some time alone unpacking and unwinding. I didn't know many people in the area, so I figured I could relax, catch up on shows, and enjoy the peace. The first few days went smoothly. I spent most of my time organizing my stuff, setting up furniture, and getting used to the layout of the apartment. It wasn't anything special, just a small, slightly run-down building with creaky floors and thin walls, but it had a certain charm. I wasn't complaining. But then things started to feel off. On the third day, I came home after work to find my front door slightly ajar. It wasn't wide open, just enough for me to notice. I stood there for a moment, unsure of what to think. Maybe I had forgotten to close it properly. It wasn't impossible. Still, I hesitated before entering, checking my surroundings. Everything seemed fine, but there was an uneasy feeling that settled in my stomach. As I moved through the apartment, nothing seemed out of place at first. But then, I noticed something odd. The cereal box I had left on the top shelf of the pantry was now on the bottom shelf. It wasn't much, but it made me feel strange. I convinced myself it was nothing, a simple mistake, and I tried to move on with my evening. Over the next few days, however, it happened again. The door was ajar when I came home. I could have sworn I had locked it properly. This time, I was a little more on edge, but still, I didn't think much of it. I checked the apartment thoroughly, but nothing seemed disturbed. Still, the feeling lingered. Then came the noises. At night, when I was lying in bed trying to fall asleep, I would hear faint sounds, footsteps, or something scraping against the floor. It was so quiet, I wasn't sure if I was imagining it, but it didn't feel right. I told myself it was just the building settling, the creaks of an old place, but deep down, I felt uncomfortable. It was as if something, or someone, was there with me. One evening after a late shift, I returned to find the door ajar again. My heart skipped a beat. This time, I wasn't going to ignore it. I hesitated outside for a moment, wondering if someone had broken in. But I convinced myself it was fine. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me. Inside, everything appeared normal, but something was different. The desk in my bedroom had been moved, just a few inches, but enough to notice. I checked my phone, but nothing seemed to indicate a reason for it. And then I saw it. The chair next to the desk had an impression in it, like someone had recently sat there. I felt my pulse quicken. Someone had been in here. But how? I had checked the place thoroughly before. I decided to take action. I bought a small camera and set it up in the living room. If anything happened again, I would have proof. But as the days passed, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The door stayed closed. The apartment was quiet. Then one night, everything changed. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I saw it. A shadow at the edge of the hallway. It was quick, just a blur, but I saw it. I froze. My heart raced, and I grabbed my phone to text a friend. "Someone's in here." I stood up, cautiously stepping toward the hallway. But when I looked, there was no one there. The apartment was still. The camera footage, when I checked it, showed nothing. It was as if the figure I had seen didn't exist. The next night, I heard the creak of the door opening again. I immediately grabbed my phone, ready to call the police. Then I heard it. A whisper, barely audible but distinct. "I've been waiting for you." I called 911. When the police arrived, they searched the apartment, but found nothing. They assured me it was probably just a neighbor playing pranks or my mind running wild. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The landlord told me no one else had keys to my apartment. I trusted them, but a creeping thought kept me awake at night. If someone was inside while I wasn't there, how could they have gotten in? It didn't add up. The police did some digging. And that's when things took a horrifying turn. The apartment next door to mine had been vacant for months. The previous tenant had disappeared without a trace. But when they went through the records, they found something chilling. In the tenant's diary, there were detailed entries about someone living next door. My apartment. The entries spoke of watching the person, getting closer, and waiting for the right moment to make a move. I moved out shortly after that. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Even now, I still wonder if the person from the diary is still out there, waiting for the next tenant. I haven't returned to that building, but sometimes when I drive past it, I can't help but feel a chill run down my spine. I used to work the night shift at a gas station in a small town. It wasn't a bad job, mostly just sitting around, scrolling through my phone and occasionally ringing up a customer. The worst part was the isolation. At night, the highway was empty, and the only sounds were the buzzing of the overhead lights and the occasional hum of a passing car. It was around 2 a.m. on a Tuesday when I first noticed him. A man stood at the edge of the parking lot, just outside the reach of the streetlights. He wasn't moving, just standing there facing the gas station. At first, I thought he was waiting for a ride, maybe just some guy passing through. But something about him made me uneasy. He was too still, like he was deliberately trying not to be noticed. His clothes were dark and baggy, making it hard to make out any details. I glanced at the security monitor. He hadn't moved. 5 minutes passed, then 10. He just stood there staring. I felt a weird tension creeping up my spine. I told myself he was probably harmless, just a guy waiting for someone. Still, I decided to lock the front door just in case. I ducked under the counter to grab the keys. When I stood back up, he was gone. I checked the monitors again, flipping through the different angles. The parking lot was empty. I let out a slow breath, telling myself he had probably just walked off. But something didn't sit right with me. I hadn't seen him leave, and there weren't many directions he could have gone without me noticing. Then I heard it. A soft knock on the glass. I froze. Slowly, I turned toward the front door. He was standing there. Up close, he looked off. His face was pressed against the glass, his breath fogging it up slightly. His expression was blank. Too blank. His eyes were locked onto mine, unblinking. "Can you let me in?" he asked. His voice was quiet, calm. Too calm. I shook my head. "We're closed." He didn't react, just kept staring. Then, after a few seconds, he smiled. It wasn't friendly. It was slow, deliberate, like he wanted me to see every movement of his lips. I took a step back. He didn't move. I grabbed the phone to call the cops, but before I could dial, the power flickered. The security monitors went dark for a second, and when they came back on, he was gone again. I spun toward the door. The parking lot was empty. I quickly locked the door, my hands shaking slightly. My brain scrambled for explanations. Maybe it was just some guy messing with me. Maybe he was drunk or high. Maybe? I decided to stay behind the counter until my shift ended. For the next hour, nothing happened. I tried to distract myself, scrolling through my phone, checking the cameras every few minutes. The tension in my chest started to ease. At around 3:30 a.m., a car pulled into the lot. An older guy, probably in his 50s, came in to buy some coffee. He was a trucker, one of the regulars. "You all right?" he asked as I rang him up. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I let out a nervous laugh. "Just a weird night." He nodded like he understood. "Gotta be careful out here this late." "You hear about that guy they arrested last week?" I frowned. "What guy?" He sipped his coffee. "Some drifter. Cops picked him up a few towns over. He was lurking around gas stations, trying to get inside after hours. Apparently, he'd been breaking into places, scaring the hell out of employees." My stomach dropped. "What? What did he do when he got inside?" The trucker shrugged. "Nothing, apparently. Just stood there and watched people. One guy woke up in the break room and found him standing over him. Didn't take anything. Didn't hurt anyone. Just watched. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. The trucker tossed some change on the counter. They said he was harmless. But who the hell does that, you know? He shook his head and walked back to his truck. I watched him drive off, my hands still gripping the counter. I didn't tell anyone about what happened that night, but sometimes, when I work late shifts, I catch myself glancing toward the edge of the parking lot, just in case. We've all been bored enough at some point to Google ourselves. Whether it's curiosity or just to kill time, we all wonder what's out there about us. But let me tell you right now, don't Google yourself. You might not like what you find. It started on an ordinary evening. I was sitting at home, scrolling through my phone, when I thought, why not see what comes up if I search my name? It's not exactly a common name, so I figured there wouldn't be much. At worst, maybe some old social media profiles or irrelevant stuff. I was wrong. The first result that came up was a website with my full name in the domain, w.myname.com. I was shocked. The chances of someone else buying that domain were slim to none. My heart rate picked up a little as I clicked the link. The website opened up to a simple message board. Nothing too flashy, just basic text and a few sections. The user profile of the website owner listed their age, and to my surprise, it was the exact same as mine. They also listed their hobbies and interests, and they lined up almost perfectly with mine. I couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. This person and I were clearly living parallel lives. But the weird part? There were no posts. The message board looked completely empty. It was just sitting there. I bookmarked the page, thinking maybe it was an abandoned project. Maybe I could learn more about this strange coincidence later. A month passed, and my curiosity got the best of me. I went back to the website. This time, there was more content. Diary entries, random mundane stuff like, the weather was nice today, or I'm so bored at work. Small, inconsequential things. But as I scrolled through them, I started to feel a creeping discomfort. The entries felt eerily familiar. It was like reading my own thoughts. The coincidences didn't stop there. The person had mentioned they lived in my city. My heart skipped a beat. What were the odds of someone with my exact name living in the same city, sharing the same interests? It kept getting stranger. Over the next few weeks, I began to notice things that made me think this person's life mirrored mine almost perfectly. One entry detailed a trip to a baseball game. I checked the date and realized it was the same day I had gone to the game. Sure, thousands of people in the city went to those games, so I didn't think much of it. But then the website owner started posting about other details of their life. They mentioned having a pet dog. The dog's name was the same as my childhood dog. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. That's too much of a coincidence, right? As I dug deeper, I found even more unsettling details. The website owner posted a picture of their car. It was the same model of car I had driven in college. They also mentioned eating at a specific restaurant. That restaurant. It was the same place I used to go to regularly when I worked at my old job. And then it happened. I was scrolling through the website one evening, and I saw a post from someone saying, "Happy birthday." At first, I didn't think much of it. After all, it's a common greeting, but when I checked the date of the post, my blood ran cold. It was my birthday. I couldn't ignore this any longer. I needed answers. So, I decided to post on the message board for the first time. I was going to wish the website owner a happy birthday, mentioning how we shared the same name. It felt weird, but curiosity outweighed my unease. But when I tried to type a message, I realized something strange. There was nowhere to type. There was no message board at all. It was just a static page with no way to interact. The site had been designed to look like an interactive message board, but it was all an illusion. There were no real users. It was all fake. I was baffled. Why would someone go through the trouble of making it seem like people were interacting, only for it to be nothing more than empty content? The next day, I did something that felt even more ridiculous. I sent an email to the website owner. The email was simple, just a friendly message. It read, "Hi there. Believe it or not, we both share the same name. Nice to meet you." I was trying to make sense of it all, and maybe even strike up a conversation to see if we could figure out this bizarre coincidence together. But when I checked the website the following day, it was gone. The entire site had vanished. Every page, every post, erased as if it never existed. I felt a strange sense of dread fill me, but I didn't know what to make of it. Maybe it was just a glitch. Maybe the person had shut it down. But then, as if to add to the nightmare, I opened my inbox. There was one email waiting for me. I clicked on it. The subject line was blank, and the only message inside was short, simple, and chilling. It read, "Found you." I haven't been able to shake the feeling that someone, or something, is still watching. And to this day, I'm afraid to search my name again.